as the government of the United States of America is not, in any sense, founded on the Christian religion. Does this sentence sound like a blatant subversion of American history? It doesn't come from some fringe theory, but from an official international treaty signed by the United States. And the reason this sentence was written stems from a forgotten war. Today, we will reveal how a pirate raid forced America into a shrewd but humiliating compromise and ultimately gave birth to one of the most powerful navies in the world. After watching this video, you will understand why the fighting spirit of the U.S. Navy was forged in humiliation, vengeance, and fire. The moment the Butterfly flapped its wings was in 1785 on the Atlantic Ocean. The American merchant ship Maria was on its return voyage, its crew dreaming of home in Boston. But a strange sail appeared on the horizon, a ghost from the old world. They were Barbary pirates from Algiers in North Africa. For the American sailors, it was the beginning of a nightmare. One moment, they were citizens of the world's freest republic. The next, they were in chains. They were no longer sailors, but merchandise. White slaves to be sold at market. On the other side of the world, in London, two of America's founding fathers were experiencing a profound culture shock. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams sat with an ambassador from Tripoli, attempting to solve the problem with diplomacy and reason. What they asked, had America done to deserve such savage attacks? The ambassador's reply stunned these two giants of the Enlightenment. He explained coolly, "It was written in our Quran that all nations who should not have acknowledged our authority were sinners, whom it was the right and duty of the faithful to plunder and enslave. There was no room for negotiation, either submit or pay." This was the brutal reality facing the United States. No navy and an empty treasury. War was suicide, but refusing to pay meant more citizens would be enslaved. Left with no other choice, the Founding Fathers walked a path of shrewd, yet deeply humiliating compromise, negotiation. In 1796, the U.S. signed the Treaty of Tripoli, and that shocking sentence from the beginning of our video comes from Article 11 of this treaty. It was a sober, even brilliant strategy. The Washington and Adams administrations were trying to signal to the Muslim rulers, our conflict has nothing to do with religion. This is not a continuation of the Crusades. This is purely a commercial matter between states. So let's not escalate it into an irreconcilable holy war. It was the most pragmatic choice a weak nation could make to protect its people. But this peace, bought with money, would ultimately become a bleeding wound. In 1795, the payments and ransom for American hostages in Algiers amounted to nearly 1/6 of the entire U.S. federal budget. This was an extortion the young republic could not bear. Finally, in 1801, greed overwhelmed fear. Tripoli, demanding more money, made a profoundly insulting move. They declared war on the United States and had the flagpole in front of the American consulate chopped down. When news reached America, the response was no longer a checkbook. Thomas Jefferson, the former diplomat, was now president. His conclusion, enough. He ordered the newly formed and untested U.S. Navy on an expedition across 4,000 miles of ocean to the Mediterranean. This was not diplomacy. This was a declaration of war. But the path to revenge began with an even greater disaster. In October 1803, while blockading Tripoli Harbor, Captain William Bainbridge of the USS Philadelphia, one of America's mightiest frigates, made a fatal error. Chasing an enemy vessel, he sailed too deep into the treacherous shoals. In an instant, the warship slammed violently onto an uncharted reef. For hours, the crew struggled desperately to free their ship, throwing anchors and even cannons overboard to lighten the load, but she was held fast. As the tide receded, the massive frigate listed helplessly onto its side, becoming a sitting duck for shore batteries and swarming pirate gunboats. Captain Bainbridge had no choice but to surrender. Over 300 American officers and men, along with their powerful warship, fell into enemy hands. It was a national disgrace. The enemy not only had hostages, but a warship they could turn against the American fleet. In the midst of this despair, a 25-year-old lieutenant stepped forward. His name was Stephen Decatur. He proposed a plan that was bordering on suicidal. Lead a small team, disguised into the heavily defended harbor, find the Philadelphia, and burn it. Midnight, February 16, 1804, Decatur and his 70 volunteers, packed into a small captured ketch named the Intrepid, slipped quietly into the jaws of the harbor. They bluffed their way past the harbor guards and drifted silently alongside the Philadelphia. The next second, Decatur was the first to draw his cutlass, roaring board, and all hell broke loose. A fierce hand-to-hand battle exploded on the deck. The pirates, roused from their sleep, were met by the Americans, fighting like avenging phantoms. After securing the deck, there was no time to celebrate. At Decatur's command, tar-soaked torches were thrown into the ship's hold. Flames instantly devoured the USS Philadelphia. As they raced out of the harbor aboard the Intrepid, the massive frigate had become a floating volcano. Shore cannons opened fire, shells sending columns of water erupting around them. But Decatur and his men, without a single life lost, made a miraculous escape. News of the raid electrified Europe. The legendary admiral of the British Navy, Horatio Nelson, called it the most bold and daring act of the age. The flap of a butterfly's wing, the capture of a single merchant ship, had ultimately summoned a storm, forging the fighting spirit of a mighty navy. The forgotten Barbary War was more than just revenge. It was a young nation's coming-of-age ceremony, forged in blood and fire. Stephen Decatur's courage was injected into the DNA of the United States Navy. From those wooden frigates in the Mediterranean to the nuclear-powered aircraft carriers that patrol the globe today, from protecting merchantmen against pirates to safeguarding the freedom and security of the world sea lanes. Over 200 years have passed. The ships have changed, the technology has changed, but that spirit of the Intrepid has never wavered. It serves as a constant reminder to America and the world that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance, strength, and the resolve to become a flame in the darkness when night falls.